What is going on? And welcome back to another episode of the First and 56 podcast, brought to you by the Everyday Morning Quarterback Locker Room, as well as the Midwest Sports Network on YouTube. Make sure you guys check both of those out. Alex Rondo, Griffin, Anthony Gould, your host, as always. You guys see the title, you know what it is. It's another game preview on a short week turnaround Thursday night primetime action kicking off. As always, we've got to bring somebody in to represent the other team. And honestly, a new one for this one. Obviously, I couldn't find a content creator. So why not go into my personal life and get one of my best friends? I've known this guy for over 15 years. So Nate Myler, my friend, super fan of the Denver Broncos. Welcome to the 56. Nate, what is going on?
Thank you, guys. First off, I want to thank you both for having me. Big fan of the podcast. You guys do great work, and always good to talk to people that know their sports and know their stuff. And super excited here to preview what should be an exciting Thursday night football matchup. It's prime time, so ready for it.
Yeah, definitely. We'll throw exciting in quotations on that one. Definitely a battle of two teams who came into the season with high expectations, and we'll just be friendly and say that they have not looked good at all. But with that, let's jump right into it. So obviously, one of the bigger stories of the offseason is Denver, bringing in a new quarterback. Guys like this typically don't move teams often. I mean, I guess it's that new NFL, but Russell Wilson comes over to Denver. So obviously, Nate, and we'll get into that a little bit later, but Nate, you dealt with Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock last season. Insert Russell Wilson. So tell us, obviously, your first thoughts of when the trade was announced and then how you're feeling right now.
Well, obviously first thoughts when it's announced is excitement, for us to get a quarterback after just the QB carousel of 7 years of Flaccos and Case Keenums and Simeons and Osweilers and, Drew Lock and Teddy. It's over, and you feel like we got a Hall of Fame quarterback. Now's our time to win. We were a quarterback away, was the feeling, with such a great defense for so long. You bring in Russ, and that excitement level's there with the talent on offense, with Sutton, with Judy, with Javonte. You're definitely thinking that, even in a tough loaded AFC West, you got a real shot at winning the division, at making a run in the playoffs. Things have to go right as always, but you're excited. And so far, I remain optimistic. I know it's not been an ideal start. I know there's a lot of stuff going around. Geno Smith, you look at his stats and they're better than Russell Wilson's, to start the year. And so he's getting paid $245 million to perform worse than Geno isn't great. But it took Peyton Manning some time in a new offense as well. As you remember, being Colts fans, he comes over to Denver. We start 2-3, and it didn't look pretty. It looked like square peg, round hole. People were questioning Manning's health, his arm strength, all sorts of things. And we went on to win our next 11 games and finish that year 13-3. Which was the year that we lost to Baltimore in the wild card in the Hail Mary to Jacoby Jones. So I do think that new coaching, new quarterback, it's going to take some time to get some things figured out. I'm a lot more pessimistic on the hire of Nathaniel Hackett and how that's looked so far, whereas I'd like to call him Hack Job. But, it's been ugly. Game management stuff, personnel decisions, play calls, you name it, he's done it wrong. And so that's been really my concern. Russell Wilson, I think he gets it figured out, where he's too talented not to. He's done it for so long, so well. I am still very confident that in the second half of the year, he'll really get it turned on. We saw a little bit of glimpse of that against the Raiders in the first half with only one incompletion. We got very conservative in the second half of that play calling. But to answer your question, I remain very optimistic on the future of Russell Wilson and his outlook in the second half.
Yeah, definitely. And obviously, you mentioned being a QB away. I think we can agree with that because, I mean, on paper, I would say Judy and Sutton, that's up there in a 1-2 punch on receivers. You could probably argue that's like middle, maybe bottom 10, top 10-ish. It's like, it's a decent 1-2 punch. Obviously, the running backs, and we'll get into it. I mean, unfortunately, he did end up going down. But I mean, Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon, that's definitely not a bad 1-2 punch in terms of the backfield. I guess the weak spot would be tight end, since you guys did send over Noah Fant in the trade. But you're right. And then, go to the defensive side, even losing Von Miller, still a nice defense Denver has. Definitely a nice young nucleus, similar to ours in a couple of aspects. So I can definitely understand the optimism. And again, it's a big move. It's a win now move. And obviously, lastly, you mentioned the arms race in the AFC West. It's like you've got to deal with the Herberts and the Mahomes of the world. And to be fair, Carr is not a bad quarterback. Saying he's the worst one in the division isn't really a knock when you look at the other three guys over there. But so one thing that you touched on, obviously we touched on Hackett, you touched on the questionable decisions. So let's dial it back to week 1. Are you going for it, or are you sending McManus out there?
Oh man, Drew Lock's quarterback. I'm sending McManus out, but we paid the guy $245 million. Russ shines in those spots. Those are the moments Russ lives for. To give him the ball in that situation. I was texting a good buddy of mine saying this game's going to come down to one play, and it's going to be an all or nothing play on Russell Wilson. And you gotta put the ball in your guys' hands in that situation. You put it in the hands of the guy that's won a Super Bowl, not on the leg of somebody that's, kicking a 63-yard field goal in a hostile environment. The percentage on that is so low. It's just not worth doing. You got to get your best play there. You go to your best play, you pick up 10 or 15 yards and you win the game. You go win the game and put it in his hands. And that was the first of obviously many question calls today for Hack Job so far. So
yeah, man. I mean, personally, I was watching the game. I was also watching the Manning cast, as everybody else was, seeing everybody try and call a timeout. Nothing was there. It was just puzzling. They blew so much clock and then just go out for the field. It was just weird. It was just so weird to me. But one thing I noticed while watching that game, I mean, granted, I haven't watched the last few, but in that game, I noticed that Russ was kind of running for his life against Seattle. I mean, granted, Seattle was going to bring that punch because, they're playing their former team. But, it seems like no matter where Russ goes, he just seems to be running for his life. And, I'm not going to say he's washed, but it seems like he's lost a little bit of his speed. Obviously, he's a little older. He's not necessarily old for a quarterback, but he's a little older than he was. And he just seems to be scrambling, the same ways. And I've seen much a bunch of people think that Russell, he lost his ability to extend plays. So what's been your assessment on Russell Wilson, as he's getting up there? Can he still, be that same type of player who can extend plays, or do you think he needs to stay in the pocket a little more?
Well, yeah, it's a great point. I mean, I think that you look at, his movement in the pocket and just overall his willingness to go outside of the pocket and scramble and make things happen. And it hasn't been there early on. And as he gets older in age, he may have to rely more on that arm strength and less on scrambling out. And I don't think he's ever been a guy that can just burn by somebody. He can certainly break contain and kind of make some magic happen. And I still think he has the ability to do that. And we saw that in that Niners game on that last drive, a vintage Russell sort of drive. And he has the ability to do that. He also has the ability to make every throw, right, with his arm strength. He's an extremely accurate deep ball passer. He can make the right read. He can make that quick decision. It's about what kind of offense we're putting around him, and the talent's there, but can Hackett get him consistent calls and reads that he can take advantage of? And we've seen, glimpses of it, and it started to come out. And, the real question that is on my mind is Hackett the guy that can get him where he needs to go, put him in a position to achieve what he needs to achieve, because he's got it. And I still know at this age, he can still do it in the right system, in the right offense. I mean, you put him in that Colts offense right now and you give them a great coach. I mean, I think that he could still be pretty good. You know what I mean? You guys have a great offensive line, a healthy Jonathan Taylor. I know Pittman's been a little underutilized, it seems. But he's a guy that in the right system, he can achieve great things. Man, you look at what Tua's doing over there with Mike McDaniel, and there's examples of this across the league that you get a good coach in there, the right weapons around him, he can make it happen. Russ is still that guy. He can still make those throws, but it remains to be seen if coaching's just going to hold him back and really degrade him to an unusable portion or not.
Yeah, and obviously it's a great point. Definitely the system matters. We've been dealing with essentially what you as Derek has done. Also, the revolving quarterback door definitely doesn't make anything easier. Now, obviously, in your guys' case, you guys got a new coach with said new quarterback, so maybe makes life a little easier. Let's get a little negative. Obviously, you brought up Taylor, so let's bring up running back. So Javonte Williams goes down with the 3 deadly letters last season. So he's done for the year. He's out. You hate to see it, a young, budding star in the league as a running back, but you fall back on Melvin Gordon, who at one time was a top tier running back in the league. So now, I'll ask you, obviously losing a talent like Javonte, you don't recover from that. But you inserted Melvin Gordon. Does that diminish kind of your prospects on how the season's going to go, or can Melvin Gordon kind of right the ship to at least have somewhat success?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Losing Javonte, and prayers out to him. That's just tough, man, because it was his LCL as well, and just hoping he makes a speedy recovery because it's hard to ever get back to your full potential with a devastating injury like that. So hopefully he's back week 1 next year and back to his normal self and form. But Melvin, he's somebody that's just got a lot to prove. He was a free agent for a few months. Nobody picked him up. He ends up coming back to Denver. And so far, let's call it what it is. Through the first 4 weeks of the season, he's been awful. 4 fumbles, almost, single-handedly lost us the game against the Niners with some deadly fumbles that we were lucky enough to recover. And then pretty much, gives the game to the Raiders on a fumble 6 again. And he's had 3 fumble 6s in the last 2 years. I don't think you have somebody that makes a negative impact on your offense the way that he has in the last 2 years. So he's got a lot to prove. The talent has been there in the past. And, the yards per carry, it's still there. He's not running into brick walls like he's Trent Richardson, but, the guy's got some vision. He can get around there. But man, you got to hold on to the ball or you're not going to have a job. If you're running back, you can't protect the football. You're not a running back. So, we signed Latavius Murray. That should be a little bit of a handcuff there. He looked decent in the game in London, had a little bit of juice. But there's no replacing a guy like Javonte. He's a tank. He breaks tackles at a higher clip than anybody in the league, with Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, guys like those. You just can't replace him. So I don't know that Melvin Gordon can carry a 20, 25 carry load, but we're going to have to figure it out. And, hey, Hackett, earn your money, right? Scheme the offense and figure out what you can do to replace, not necessarily replace it, but, fill that void a little bit to where we don't go completely backwards.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, you mentioned holding on to the ball. We can definitely understand now. I know you say you're running back. How about your quarterback holding the ball? Because Matt Ryan's on pace to literally break a fumble record. But so yeah, we trust us. We definitely get that one. Let's flip to the other side of the ball because Denver's got some nice, interesting young pieces on defense. Obviously the big names. Bradley Chubb. Pat Surtain, who I honestly actually love him. Really freaking mirror of his dad back in his Dolphins days. He's rounded out to be a very nice corner. But so those are the 2 names we know. How about you educate us on some unsung heroes on that Denver defense?
Yeah. Again, I think we just have to start with injuries a little bit with other big name guys like Justin Simmons. This is his last game that he's out. He's on IR. He's expected to return next week. But Randy Gregory going down was just great for us. Pressures just dominating that end of the line really helps Chubb as well. And Ivera, our defensive coordinator, did some nice things, stacking him and Chubb on the same side and pass rushing that way. And it's allowed us to get some pressure as well. Which was a good scheme fit. I think that was really nice. I think when you look at DJ Jones, the defensive tackle signing that we had from San Francisco, he's been an absolute stud in there. Draymond Jones at defensive end was very, very solid as well. And then you got Josie Jewell at middle linebacker, who's done a nice job. But it's been a good team scheme overall for Denver defensively. But you got to get back to it. 3 great games, ranked 3rd in points per game, but you got Indy, who's ranked number 1, right, defensively in points allowed per game. So it's going to be a defensive battle, I think, and our defense really has to hold up against the run with or without Jonathan Taylor against that offensive line that Indy has there. Just Josh Jacobs, I think he had a career game last week, and you're not going to win in the NFL if you just get manhandled at the line of scrimmage like that. So, that'll be interesting dynamic to see us address here on a short week.
Yeah, most definitely, man. And I think with Vic Fangio being there, obviously he was a big name coming in from Chicago as a defensive minded guy. Do you think that the defense has lost a little juice, or do you think they're playing at the same level? Because honestly, Hackett is a big offensive mind. He was the big popular name coming in from Green Bay, and he it's hard to say, who took a lot of the credit from their offense. Did Aaron Rodgers really carry his coordinators? Because we see with a lot of these Green Bay coordinators, a lot of them don't really work out. So, do you think that the defense has lost a little juice without Vic Fangio, or because he was the big name. Everybody was thinking, keep Vic Fangio there and just let Russ do his thing. But now Fangio's out the door, and now you have this new guy in here. So, how do you feel about the defense overall?
Yeah, I mean, Fangio was a great defensive coordinator. He had employed a lot of that bend but don't break philosophy, right? Let him drive down the field, but hold him to field goal. Number one red zone defense for 4 years in a row for Denver. And again, this year we looked coming into the Raider game, we were number one. We I think held them to one touchdown in the red zone and a lot of field goals. That touchdown, unfortunately, was at the very end of the game, which kind of put us away. But defensively, I think that the talent's still there. The scheme has changed. They've gone a lot more aggressive. It's not this bend but don't break strategy. It's let's be aggressive. Let's create turnovers, rush the quarterback. And we haven't given up the big play as a result. Now, it remains to be seen. Truly, the jury's still out on that. And that could be the case because you look at offenses we played and you say, okay, well, the Texans, they're not doing anything, right? Especially on the road. That's a tough game. Seattle, not really a high-powered offense, although they did score 48 last week. You don't expect them to dominate offensively. The Niners, they're a good run team. We shut them down pretty well as well. And then the Raiders last week were really the first good game that an offense had against us. But for some reason, I hate to say it because I hate the Raiders, but they have dominated us and had our number for really the last 3 or 4 years. And as it seems like the Colts do, it seems like the Colts seem to win the big ones against us, the primetime ones. 3-0 in the playoffs against us in the last 20 years. Obviously, a couple of those in the Manning days where he just was in his prime and dissecting us. But even when you look at the Andrew Luck, versus Peyton Manning game that we had, 6 or 7 years ago, you guys got us in that one too. So it always feels like the Colts win those games that they have to have. Our 2015 season, we won the Super Bowl. Our first loss was also to the Colts. So it just feels like even though we're, I think, 14-14 all time, that the Colts seem to have the Broncos number in those big games. At least it feels that way as a Bronco fan. I don't know how you guys feel.
Yeah, I'm actually glad you brought that up because that was my next segue. That, including the playoffs, the record is dead even. So this is grudge match time here. Ironically enough, we were talking about it off the air. Our last time we played each other was 3 years ago. That was the Jacoby Brissett year where nobody scored a touchdown until Marlon Mack gets a little 10-yard run in the fourth quarter. So yeah, obviously, I think both of us have come a long way from that time. So with that, let's jump into this specific matchup. Because again, as I preface the show, two teams definitely in the offseason with a lot of noise. Hasn't gone that way. Obviously, us sitting with a 1-2-1, you guys sitting at a 2-2 record. But so Nate, we'll start with you. Is there a specific key matchup that you're looking forward to in this game, or that could even be like a deciding factor of who actually takes the win?
Well, yeah, I think just with it being such a defensive battle, you got to take away key weapons. And I'm sitting here waiting for Pittman to kind of explode. And I'm looking at Pat Surtain and him and being able to control him because without Jonathan Taylor, that offense should be more limited, if we can take away Pittman. And if Pittman's a guy, he's a guy that can carry an offense. He can win you a game almost single-handedly with these 10 catch for 120-yard performances that we've seen out of him and really open things up for other guys when he does that. And so that's one thing I'm looking at is that Pat Surtain-Pittman matchup and, how well we can take away Pittman.
All right, definitely, I like it. Obviously, and that's two young, growing stars in this game. Gulag, I'll toss it to you, and I'll go Les.
Yeah, so my key matchup I'm going to be watching is the offensive line from the Colts against the defensive line for the Broncos. Obviously, they're a little beat up with Randy Gregory out, but it's safe to say they've had a bottom 3 O-line in football last few weeks. I mean, they've jumped from a top 3 offensive line in the past 2 years to a bottom 3. And that's just a mixture of injuries, players declining, and not being aggressive in free agency. So it's just going to be key for me. I mean, granted, I was just looking up the stats before I came on. Matt Ryan right now, he's fourth in the NFL in passing yards. And obviously nobody really expected that. And frankly, I don't think it should be like that. If the run game gets going, he shouldn't have to pass as much. But, I think like if you look at the all 22 in the film, the play calling isn't as bad as people say it is with the Colts. I mean, if he's a clean pocket, Matt Ryan he's accurate. If he's not fumbling the ball, he's accurate. So I think if the offensive line, if they can protect him against this beat up defensive line, I think that Matt Ryan could have a good day. So that's my key matchup. I really want to see this offensive line perform for once, even if they don't have a good game. Let's just hope he doesn't get sacked, say 4 times. He's already been sacked 14 times this season. So.
Yeah, it's been a recurring theme on the show. We've talked about it. We have the most expensive offensive line in the league, and yet, I believe we've allowed the third most. I think only Joe Burrow and Justin Fields have been sacked more than Matt Ryan in the season. So obviously, you're paying them all that money. It's like you've got to protect the guy and keep him upright, especially since he's not that mobile. Which is obviously going to slightly segue into my matchup. So obviously, you went our O line against their D line. I'm actually flipping it. I'm going with our D line more, not so much against the Broncos O line, but against Russell Wilson. Because we've really seen over kind of the past 5-6 years as Colts fans that mobile quarterbacks constantly destroy us with their ability to extend plays. And, obviously we talked about how Russell Wilson isn't scrambling like how we used to back in the Seattle days, but he's still mobile. He's still extremely hard to bring down to the ground. And we've seen the defense has started to come around. Week 1 was slow. We've seen them progressively get better. Obviously, you hold Mahomes and co. to 17 points, and at that time, they were the highest scoring offense in the league. So it's more than anything, it's going to be on getting Russell Wilson on the ground. I think on the season, I believe we only have 5 sacks as a team, which is with all the noise that came in and Yannick Ngakoue, DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye's been playing amazing, but we need more from them. I would like to see at least 3 sacks. I know it's probably not going to happen, but more than anything, it's going to be shaking up Russell Wilson. You've got to get him out of his rhythm.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, granted, last year our home opener was against Seattle, and I remember specifically a play where he's rolling right and he hits Lockett for a 30-yard touchdown. And granted, we haven't seen that type of level of consistency yet this year. I feel like with Russ, it's it's here and there, but it could be coaching. It's hard to say what the issues are right now, but Russell Wilson in the past has killed us, but we had some success against Patrick Mahomes a couple weeks ago. So it's hard to say what's going to happen, but I feel like if it's been my big thing, the defensive line, they have to finish. Ngakoue is living the Kwity Paye curse of last year. Kwity Paye didn't have his first sack until the Jets game in week 7 or 8, but he had 15 pressures until then. Ngakoue is this close from the quarterback, literally last week and against Mahomes. If Mahomes didn't scramble out of there, Ngakoue would have had 5 or 6 sacks that game. No joke. He was getting after the quarterback. So I feel like if our defensive line finishes plays, they could really get after him. But, I have to see it to believe it first. So I like that.
Yeah, definitely. Again, mobile quarterbacks have been essentially our Achilles heel, and it doesn't help that the NFL is kind of moving to this thing where nearly every quarterback in the league is a mobile guy. If anything, it's probably easier to count the stone walls back there with us having one of them. But so with that, let's get a little more specific. So Vegas currently has the spread at 3.5, giving Denver the edge. You could argue whether that's home field. Obviously, that kind of tells you that it's really purely home field. And over-under is sitting at 43 at this present moment. Now, obviously, this is not a betting channel. Bet responsibly. We are not experts on it. But, Nate, we're going to go to you. So, 3.5 for the Broncos. Would you take the points on that? And over-under, what would you do?
Oh, well, I've gone 4-0 with my Bronco predictions so far this year. I felt us losing to Seattle and beating, not covering against Houston, and then covering against the Niners, and last week losing to the Raiders. I think this is a game that Denver can win by a touchdown. It wouldn't surprise me for it to go the other way, but I would, if I'm betting on something, I would take Denver to cover the 3.5 points. I think it's going to be an under game. When you have scoring defense wise, you have 2 of the top 3 scoring defense points per game teams in the NFL. So, it'd be surprising for me to see one of these teams drop 30 points or 4 touchdowns, right? It just, I think it's a field goal game. I think minimizing turnovers, man, that's going to be so big in this game, because if either one of these teams turns the ball over 2 or 3 times, I think you're digging yourself a shallow grave. So we'll see how it goes as far as that.
Yeah, definitely. And like literally to speak on how fluid it is, I'm looking at William Hill right now. It's dropped back down to 3. So Vegas really just kind of has it as it's home field and nothing more. Gulik, I'll go to you on this one. So obviously, again, 3 points, 3.5, and over under. What are you seeing?
Oh man, I'm gonna say this one's a really hard game for me, because especially with this being in Denver, playing at that altitude it's something else, man. I'm gonna say, I'll say the Broncos will probably cover. I mean, honestly, the home field advantage, especially in Denver, is big, but Frank Reich loves to be aggressive. You will never not see a 4th down where Frank Reich will not go. But I feel like in this game, I have a feeling if they're inside the 30, where it's at least a 40-yard field going on, Frank Reich is going to take the points every time. I don't think Frank Reich has ever been on the road in Denver, like we just said earlier. The last time we played the Broncos was at home. But this is definitely a different animal. It's just like, teams struggling in that Florida heat. We saw with us in Jacksonville, and the Bills struggling in Miami. Playing in Denver is no joke. So I think whoever comes out on top, it's definitely going to be a low-scoring affair.
Yeah, I'm with you. And honestly, I think it's gonna be literally a mirror of our KC preview. It's a game we have no business winning, and yet there's this strange, weird feeling that we do, and Reich's gonna save his job for another week. But I'm with both of you. It's got to be an under game. I mean, first and foremost, the Thursday game is typically really ugly because you've always got that quick turnaround for one. And so, 40, again, we were talking about up there, 43 is basically, it's a 24-21 Denver win. You look at both teams. In our case, we haven't topped 20 points on the season. Denver's top 31. So, ironically, even though on paper there is offensive weapons on both sides, it's like Nate mentioned, you've got really these defensive first teams. So I think we're in for probably a field goal battle. Speaking of which, obviously we did fully elevate Chase McLaughlin to the active roster, so he is the kicker for the rest of the season now. But I'm with both of you. It's going to be a low scoring affair. I definitely can't see a shootout. But so let's bring it full circle. Let's close it out. So Nate, we'll start with you as always. Hit us with a final score prediction, and as the only first 56 way possible, give us a bold prediction. Get a little crazy, but stay within the realm of possibility.
All right. So final score, I'm going to say 20-13 Denver pulls out in a low scoring field goal battle. I think we're on the same page there. And my bold prediction is that, and this might be too crazy, but that Melvin Gordon will not fumble the football. That might be just throwing it way too out of left field, but I'm going to actually say that Melvin Gordon's going to touch the ball 22 times. He'll have over 100 yards, and he will not fumble the football. So
I like it. Hey, more power to it. Gulik, go ahead.
Rondo knows what this is going to be for me.
I love this.
It makes too much sense. So first off, I'm going to go 24-13 Colts. I think we pulled out defensive line. They put on a show. I think they're going to do good. But my bold prediction, like I said, this makes too much sense. Jonathan Taylor is right now in a walking boot. He's a game time decision. In my opinion, what they need to do is elevate Lindsey from the practice squad.
Yes.
He knows that Broncos field and that altitude better than anybody else, and he gets the bulk of the carries. Because Nyheim Hines is a great RB2, but he's not a volume guy. He's more of a gadget player who lines up in the slot. He'll get you maybe 5 to 10 carries per game max. But Lindsey has never fumbled the football in his career, ever. And he's just sitting there on the practice squad. He was there in street clothes last week. I feel like if there's any time to use him, we're on a short week. It's time to not rush Jonathan Taylor. It makes too much sense to bring up Philip Lindsay. So I'm saying Philip Lindsay gets a start this week.
Yeah, I love it. Obviously, off the air, I loved it. So definitely, even just perspective, Taylor's hurt. It's a short week. Sit him. It's fine. It really, obviously, like you said, it makes too much sense. So it's not gonna happen. As for myself, I'm gonna predict the Broncos win. I see the Broncos. I say Broncos 21, Colts 15. As for the bold prediction, I went with it last week. The tight ends took over, so I think it happens this week though. Pierce and Pittman both go for a buck each. It needs to happen, obviously. And if Taylor doesn't play, we've definitely got to go with our better weapons, which is the passing attack. But yeah, so I'm going Pierce and Pittman, light it up, but granted in a losing effort.
I like that. Who's the quarterback too, by the way, for the Broncos? Is that Ronald Darby?
Ronald Darby's the number 2, and then K1 Williams in the slot.
Okay. Pierce, I'm pretty sure is taller than both of those guys. They threw him a jump ball last week. He actually caught it. So, we could. Who knows?
Hey, I loved it. It was literally one of those fuck it. He's down there somewhere plays. So and he's gonna be that guy because like we talked about it on a different show. Pittman's really not that jump ball go getter. It's Pierce. Pierce is the guy for that. So hopefully that was the first of many to come.
Well, it starts having time to throw, right? That offensive line's got to protect for Matt Ryan so that he can get down there.
Yeah, tell me about it. Again, like it's absolutely baffling, and it's really essentially us parroting ourselves from last season because I was not a fan of bringing in Carson Wentz, but then I rationalized it as, okay, our O-line is amazing. He's going to get the best protection of his life. Nope. So, and you're seeing the same thing now with Matt Ryan. It's that revolving quarterback door, so let's close up the show with that because we actually have this rare, unique situation. Because since 2018, I'd argue to say I think we've went through about the same amount of quarterbacks. So obviously, Nate will ask you, because for us, this is new territory. We're used to having a guy. How do you deal with that on a consistent basis, not knowing who your guy under center is going to be?
Oh man, you could just take the Raiders approach of how every year is going to be a great year. So it's every quarterback is going to be the guy. Drew Lock, he's going to be the guy. Dennis Osweiler, he's going to be the guy. I'm a glass half full guy. I definitely believe in the quarterbacks as they come in. Obviously, once you've got an extended look at somebody, you kind of know. And we've had a couple guys like Flacco and Teddy B and Keenum that, this wasn't their first stop. So we also knew what kind of guys they were. But you just kind of rationalize it with our defense can carry us. And we kind of, as a Bronco fan, look at the way we won it in 2015 with Peyton and knowing that, hey, that year Peyton Manning had 11 touchdowns and 18 interceptions. And we won a Super Bowl with that. He wasn't the same Peyton. He was a game manager. And if your defense is good enough and your coaching is good enough, you can win with a game manager. It's not pretty and it's not today's NFL, but it can be done. And it will be done again. That wasn't the first time. It won't be the last. So I think if you build enough around it and you can draft somebody or bring somebody in that you have the right team and coaching around, you can get a decent season out of them. And win some games. But offenses, everything else got to go perfect. Like you mentioned, Alex, offensive line, you got to have a top end defense. Jonathan Taylor's got to be the RB1 almost, right? And everything else has to be clicking on all cylinders in order for that to really work. So,
yeah, definitely. And I've seen you saying, "Oh, this year's gonna work." That literally describes probably Colts Twitter starting back with Phillip Rivers, really. I mean, because they hated you. Yeah, Phillip Rivers, Jacoby Brissett, Carson Wentz. Yeah, so it's new, unheard of territory for us. We're used to having our guy Peyton Manning, one bad year, Andrew Luck, consistency. New territory for us as Colts fans. Obviously, it's ugly again. It's gonna be a weird one. Obviously, Thursday night football is approaching. Nate, I can't thank you enough for obviously coming on. Definitely a privilege as always. That is my brother. Again, been friends for nearly over 15 years. Obviously, nothing to plug here, but Nate, definitely thank you for coming on. If you want to say goodbye real quick, and maybe if you want to plug yourself, go ahead.
Yep. Thank you, guys. I want to appreciate you guys having me. Rondo, great to see you, man. Great show for you guys, and continue to watch. And I think it'll be a exciting game Thursday. More exciting than some people think. Good defenses. I love watching it. So best of luck to you guys and throughout the rest of the season.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate it. Obviously, you guys can catch this show as well as all of our episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Anchor, Twitter, First and 56, and Facebook. Make sure you're following all of those there. The Midwest Sports Network is the YouTube channel. You can catch all of our live streams on there from now until the end of the season. I just posted Jonathan Taylor giveaway video on there. Go ahead and relook at that. I'm going to have more giveaways on the way. We've got plenty of stuff for you guys to give away. If you guys need some glasses, obviously you want to blind your vision on how the terrible season's been going so far, teamclicks.com/Rondo. Get yourself some nice sunglasses customized to your favorite team of all sports. Pick and choose, click and clack. Clicks has got you hooked up. Lastly, Rave on Sports. Available on iOS and Android. Download the app. Live battle chats every week for your favorite NFL and college teams. We have the privilege of hosting all of the Colts battle chats. We'll be doing that this Thursday. Hope to see you guys in there. Make sure you're following the First and 56 page as well when you do all of that. But definitely on behalf of myself and Gulick, our guest, Nate Myler, this is First and 56 signing off from us, the Everyday Morning Podcast, the Midwest Sports Network. We will catch you guys on the next one. 156 out.